Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I am Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express U channel 972. You're always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning. And we are just wrapping up our 8th week of our 9-week course. So we have one more week left. At this point, you definitely need to have submitted some work and you need to keep doing so you can get your work done. Our deadline is June 10th, which is next Friday. So not tomorrow, but next week. And all of your work needs to be in, including your culminating assignment, which is something you don't have yet for the most case. You need to get all of your work in, and then I will give you your final project for you to do that also needs to be in by June 10th. So at this point, you definitely should know that the support questions, the ones with the pencil icon, are not for marking, and they're practice problems that you decide which and how many to do. The key questions, the ones with the key icon, are the ones to submit for grading. So please do all of these questions. If you want all of the marks, give me all the questions. Show all of your work. This way I can truly understand what it is that you understand and what you don't understand, and I can help you. Also, I can give you part marks the more information that you give me if you do make a mistake. So it's best to show me as much as you can. There are 3 methods for submitting your work for marking. The first is to scan your work and send it electronically. You can scan your work in through a smart device, either the iPhone Notes app or the Android Google Drive app. They both have scan functions that are fairly straightforward. If you can't do that, if that doesn't work for you and you just want to take pictures, that's fine too. Feel free to do that. The files are just a little bit bigger and a little bit more awkward to send, but it's fine. I can deal with it. Then you can send it to either email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can send it through Facebook Messenger to bSlateWahsa. The second method is to drop your work off into Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location 74 Front Street. We have the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance, so you can put it in there at any time. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Then your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media and you haven't done so yet, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name bSlateWahsa. As you know, all of our radio Zoom classes are recorded and I post them on YouTube by the end of the week. And there's also short videos on there that I have done that explain common errors and also confusing concepts that might just need a little bit more work. There are definitely things there that are not relevant for this course that are for other courses. So don't assume that all of the videos are things that you need to understand. Just look to see if there's something there that you do need to understand that might be helpful for you. Math is really visual, so I strongly encourage you to connect with the videos. Either join me live through Zoom, even if you're just watching and not asking questions, completely fine. Or if that doesn't work for you, watching the replays on YouTube. However, if you can't do that either, let me know and I can send you a copy of the recordings so you can still get the full experience. As always, if you need to connect with me, please reach out and contact me. My email is bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook is bSlateWahsa. My phone number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Or you can also call me toll free at 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m., though I teach the first hour and the last hour of the day. So that's not a great time to try to get a hold of me. And if I don't answer your call, I'm away from my desk or I'm teaching, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. All right, so today is our last Throwback Thursday lesson. We are reviewing what lessons we did this week, 18 through 20. So just a reminder of why we review so frequently. You may be wondering why we spent so much time of our course every week, every couple of weeks, if it wasn't every week, to go back over what we did. Why didn't we spend it doing something else? Well, we know from research that we forget things really quickly. Our brains are built to take information in and then hold it if it's useful. And if we don't keep using it, then we let it go. So after a week, we've lost 60% approximately of the information that we learned a week ago. So in order to retain that information, if we frequently revisit it, we come back to it, then we refill our brains with that information. And then it also takes longer to forget it. Maybe our brains are thinking that this is important because we continue to revisit it, so they're going to retain it. It's going to retain it for longer. So this is why we continue to review, so that hopefully now that we are at the end of the course, you don't have to completely scratch your head and go back to what we did at the beginning of the course, because we revisited it a few times. And hopefully it's not completely like you have to relearn it all over again, because we really don't want you to be having to relearn all the material in the last week of the course in order to do your culminating assignment. Before we dive into our review, let's activate our brain with some mental math. I believe math facts are really important. I believe memorizing them is not so important. So math minutes focused on memorization, focused on that being the important part, and strategy is not important. So instead, we work on strategies that we can use in different situations. Speed and memorization are not the most important things in math. True deep understanding and understanding why things work is more important in mathematics. So that's what we spend our time working on. So our question today is 12 times 29, and we're going to be using the strategy of making a landmark. So 12 times 29 is not a super friendly number, but if I think of 12 times 30, maybe that's a little bit more friendly. It's friendly for me because I know that 3 times 12 is 36. That is one that I do have memorized. I've done enough times, and I was good at memorizing when I was a kid, so they're just in my brain, but I recognize that doesn't work for everybody. So 3 times 12 is 36, which means that 30 times 12 is 360. So that's really close to 12 times 29. But I have one extra group of 12, right? Instead of having 29, I added 1, but I just didn't add one individual thing. I added one whole group of 12, which means that I need to subtract 12, one group of 12, which is 12 things, off of my 360 amount. So 60 take away 12 is 48. So 360 take away 12 is 348. So 12 times 29 is 348. That's how you can make a landmark. So my landmark was 30. That was a friendly number that I was able to do. And then I was able to change, I was able to shift my number. Alternatively, we could, if I didn't want to do 12 times 30, I could think of, well, 10 times 29 is 290. And then I still need 2 groups. So I could do 2 times 29, which isn't super friendly, but is going to be, so 2 times 20 is 40, and 2 times 9 is 18. So that's going to be 58. And then I could add them together and get the same 348. So you can always do these strategies in a variety of different ways. There's not one perfect way that I want you to replicate. I do what makes sense to me. There might be something that makes sense, completely different sense to you, and it's fine to do what makes sense to you. It's fine to use your brain to do these problems. That is what my experience was in elementary school, was that we were supposed to all try to do one thing. even in high school, really, we were trying to replicate the teacher's right way of doing things. And that isn't the way. There are lots of different ways to do math. And it's completely fine to use your strengths and your understanding in order to manipulate the numbers in a way that is accurate, though different than other folks. All right, so what are our highlights for our course? So we are going to do a quick run through of our entire course because now we've completed all of the new information. So let's think all the way back to Unit 1. So Lesson 1 was earning an income, where we talked about salary and piecework. And then also we looked at job advertisements. And then Lesson 2 was commission and hourly rates. We also looked at overtime as well. So salary, piecework, hourly rates, and commission are 4 different ways that we can earn income. So if salary is a yearly amount that we say, that we break it up into terms of biweekly or weekly amounts or something like that. Piecework is where we get paid per job, per thing that we create, per job that we do. Hourly rate is when we get paid per hour. So we get $15 is our minimum wage. So for every hour you get $15 if that's what your rate is. And commission is you're getting paid a percentage of what you sell. So they can be combinations. Some of them can be combinations of each other. Overtime, then on top of that is where you get paid a usually time and a half, so 1.5 times your rate in order to, if you're working more hours than you were scheduled to work. That basically is related to our hourly rates. In terms of salary, that you generally don't get paid overtime. Often you get paid time in lieu. So if you're working overtime, then that means that you take time off for those hours that you worked extra. Anyway, those are different ways that we get paid. So then Lesson 3 was gross and net pay. So we talked about how gross is your total amount of money that you are technically have earned. And then there are the deductions. So there's the CPP, EI, and your income tax, which all are deducted, as well as there might be health benefits or other pension plans, or other things, union dues. So that gets taken off of your gross pay, and then you get your net income, which is the total amount of money that you take home after your deductions. Your deductions are things that you can tap into, things that will benefit you in other moments. So they are worthwhile, and the reason that we have them automatically come off of our paycheck is so that everybody contributes into them proportionately. So compared to what their income is, they pay a certain amount. So then in Lesson 4, we looked at paying taxes. So we looked at the tax paperwork and how tax brackets work. So the fact that we don't pay the same amount of taxes on all of our income. It depends on where they fit within the tax brackets. And then we looked at hidden taxes in terms of jewelry, cigarettes, and gasoline. Then finally, we did Lesson 5 was making purchases. So we looked at making change with the fewest coins possible. We looked at sales tax in terms of PST, GST, and HST. We looked at discounts and estimating costs as well. Remembering that when you are having a discount, you calculate the discount first, and then you calculate the tax. So then Unit 2, we moved on to buying decisions. So in Lesson 6, we looked at unit price, which often we think of as the best buy. So the cheapest thing is the best buy. Not always true, depends on our situation, but that's generally how we think about it. We also talked about incentive programs like loyalty programs or points programs in terms of how companies get you to spend money in to them. And we looked at currency conversions in terms of specifically looking at converting Canadian dollars to US dollars and back. Then we moved on to simple interest. So here we remember where simple interest is when you make an investment or borrow money and the interest that amount earns is calculated only on the principal, only on the initial amount that you invested or that you borrowed. So our calculation is, we find that by doing I, so our interest equals PRT, so principal times rate times time. And that's how you figure out how much something earns in simple interest or how much you might owe in simple interest. Then in Lesson 8, we connected from simple interest to compound interest, remembering that simple interest is only on the principal, but compound interest is on the principal and the interest. So we looked at the spreadsheets to see how this how compound interest grows differently. So then in lesson 9, we looked at compound interest and how to use a formula instead of using spreadsheets so that you don't have to calculate every single year in a spreadsheet. If you're doing it year by year, you use a spreadsheet. If you want to figure out what it's going to be in 10 years and 20 years and 50 years, using this formula is much more efficient. So the formula is A, which is your final amount, is equal to principal times 1 plus rate divided by number of compounding periods, where that is all raised to the power of number of compound periods times your time in years. And then in lesson 10, we looked at banking transactions. So we talked about checkings and savings accounts and the various types of transaction codes and how this information you can find online banking and what you can do online, and also what you can do at an ATM, and how if you're using an ATM, specifically one that is not associated with your bank, you're most likely paying quite high fees, up to $5 a transaction generally. So it's really important to be wary of those. And then we moved on to our unit 3. So unit 3, we looked at, in lesson 11, we looked at credit cards and how to apply and how to choose one and how interest works and what the true cost of credit cards is. Then in lesson 12, we looked at loans. So here we looked at a personal loan compared to a credit card loan compared to a line of credit. And then we talked about payday loans and how they are incredibly dangerous as they cost you so much money. They're not helpful because you get trapped in a cycle where you are just constantly owing them money, owing them more and more and more money, and you never can get out of it. It will never get you ahead. The chances are very, very good you will never pay it off. So, as you may hear, I strongly encourage you not to do a payday loan. Figure out something else. There's many other options. Figure out something else. And we talked about cost of loans in terms of if you have how you might end up paying more interest. Then finally, we looked at amortization tables and how they track your payments in terms of how much of your payment is going towards the principal and how much is going towards interest and how much you pay overall. Then we looked at, in lesson 13, we looked at driver's licenses and insurance. And so we talked about the graduated licensing system in Ontario and how you can earn your license and how it takes a period of time. We talked about demerit points and how that you earn demerit points by doing things that are illegal and dangerous. The more dangerous it is, the more demerit points you earn. And if you earn up to 15 demerit points, you can have your license suspended. And we looked specifically at speeding and how many demerit points and fees are associated with that. Then we looked at car insurance and what might increase your car insurance, the various ways that you might be paying a higher premium based on your driving record and some other factors. Then lesson 14, we looked at buying new and used vehicles. So new vehicles are pros in terms of being the exact vehicle that you want, being in really good condition because it is brand new, but it also is incredibly expensive and it loses value immediately, which leads us to depreciation, where we talked about how vehicles depreciate. So that is the value, how they lose value immediately and how they lose significant value at the beginning. So then we talked about how the value in used cars and how buying a used car can be really beneficial because the car has already technically lost that initial value. So you don't end up paying that premium of just having a new car. So you can get a decent car for much cheaper. Though you do have to be concerned about repairs, and there's various fees associated with both new and used cars. And lesson 15, we looked at leasing a vehicle and how that is different. So there are pros and cons depending on your situation. If leasing a vehicle is the best option for you compared to buying new or used or just using public transportation or not having a vehicle at all. Within that, we talked about the kilometer surcharge. So when you're leasing a vehicle, usually you have a limit of how many kilometers you're allowed to put on a vehicle in the year or the total life of your lease. And if you go over that, then you have to pay a certain amount per kilometer that you go over. And we talked about how there's often fine print in leasing vehicle contracts. So things like there might be fees hidden fees or surcharges, or in terms of damages, or all sorts of things. We went into detail about what you might be wanting to be paying attention to before you're signing this contract. And then finally, unit 4. So in lesson 16, we then looked at vehicle costs. So now that we have a license and we have a vehicle drive, what does it cost? So we have to budget for gas, but also maintenance, repairs, and insurance. We talked about fuel efficiency. So how many liters per 100 kilometer your vehicle gets, and how the lower the number, the more fuel efficient your vehicle is. Then we talked about the cost of fuel and how that is dollars per liter. So in order to calculate the fuel consumption and the fuel cost to figure out how much you actually spend, you need to use the fuel efficiency. So figure out how much liters you are using. And then you can then multiply that by the dollars, your fuel cost, so how much you pay to fill it up to travel those distances in order to how much it's going to cost you to drive. And then lesson 17, we looked at traveling distances. So if we are planning a road trip using a paper map and how that can help us, there's different ways in terms of finding the distances between places. And then we also looked at digital maps, specifically Google Maps, and how there's different ways to use a Google map instead to plan a trip and see how far things are. And then we wrap that lesson up by talking about travel time in bad weather. So even if Google Maps says it's going to take you 3 hours, if you are in a snowstorm or if it's raining, you need to slow down. If the road if the road is wet in any way, you need to slow down, because your stopping time is significantly different as soon as the road is wet. The vehicle just can't stop in the same amount of time. And if you can't see as far as you ahead of you is compared to a clear day, then you're more likely to hit something, because if you are driving faster, because you're going to be driving beyond your stopping distance, which means that even if you see something, if you're going too fast for your stopping distance, then it means that even if you see something as soon as you possibly can, if you're going too fast and you slam on the brakes, you still potentially will hit it because your vehicle just is going too fast. So slow down. All right, and so then what new did we do this week? So we planned a trip in lesson 18. So we talked about gas and how we had to figure out the travel distance from where you're going on your trip. And then from there, we could figure out the fuel consumption and cost of gas. We talked about accommodations and how you need to not forget to put the tax of the specific location. So if you're traveling in Ontario, tax is all the same. It's HST, it's 13%. But if you go outside of Ontario, different provinces and territories have different taxes. So some places have HST, harmonized tax, and other places have PST and GST. And so GST is 5% for everywhere that has GST. That's the goods and services tax. And then PST is different depending on the province. None of the territories have PST. It is only a provincial tax. But you need to be conscious about, if you're planning a trip somewhere, that you need to keep that in mind. If you go to about Alberta, they don't have a provincial tax, so it's only 5%. So that means that it feels like your money goes a long way. If you're from Alberta and you go somewhere else, you need to remember that we have taxes everywhere else that are higher. So things are going to feel like they're more expensive. And then we talk about meals and how you need to plan for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks. So maybe you plan for a certain amount for each of those meals, or you plan a day rate in terms of we're going to put this much money aside per person per day, and plan it that way. And then you want to plan for entertainment. If you're planning a trip, you're probably going to spend money on things, on going places, on admission costs, and as well as souvenirs. You're probably going to buy stuff. So you want to budget for that within your, while you're planning your trip. Then in lesson 19, we looked at reading charts and schedules in terms of when you're traveling not by car. So we looked at the differences between planes, trains, and buses. And so when we're looking at schedules, we need to consider the departure and arrival times. They're likely to be a 24-hour clock. They're also likely to be in the local time. So if you are traveling between time zones, then the time is going to be the local time. So that might end up looking confusing. You need to consider if there are stops, if you need to transfer from one mode of transportation to another. Are there layovers where you're going to be someplace for a long period of time? How long? What's the duration of the travel for over the course of the day? And then in lesson 20, we looked at modes of transportation where we looked at public transportation more in depth. So we looked at fares, as we don't have any public transportation in Sioux Lookout or in any of our northern communities. We looked at Winnipeg and Thunder Bay, as those are the two closest places that have public transportation systems that folks from our area are likely to use. And then we also looked at the Toronto, the TTC, as well, as people do generally often go to Toronto. If you're going for medical or visiting folks, or just it's a place that people go. So I thought that I would just share that, as well, as it's the largest system within Ontario. Sorry. Within public transportation, most places just have buses, but Toronto does have a subway system and streetcars as well. Montreal has a subway system, and Vancouver has a subway system, I believe. There are other places that have other sort of train, service train, like streetcar type systems. So all of this, looking it up before you travel to that location, is really going to set you up for the most success. There are pros and cons to public transportation that we went into detail in our lesson. And then we looked at car rentals. So if you're traveling someplace, if you want to rent a car instead of using public transportation or driving there yourself, then you need a driver's license, and a valid driver's license. And you also are going to need a credit card in order to rent a car. Your age matters. If you are over 25, you'll get a better rate than if you're under 25, just in terms of insurance costs. And that's how the companies think that you are higher risk if you're under 25. That there are often extras included that they're trying to sell you, they're trying to upsell you. So watch out for them and really consider if it's something that you actually need or not. It might not be worth it. Including insurance. Sometimes if you have car insurance, or if you have other insurance, even if you have possibly insurance on your credit card, that might cover car rentals. So you might not need to buy extra insurance because you might already be covered. Look into that. Car rentals can have unlimited versus limited kilometers. So you may just be paying for the car and it doesn't matter how far you drive, or you may be paying for a certain amount of kilometers, and every other kilometer has a fee attached to it. So it's good to know. And then there's also generally fuel and damage fees to be aware of before you rent a vehicle, just so that you know what the cost might be. Okay, so that is our course. We have run through quickly the entire course, that the content that we covered. We've covered a lot. Hopefully it has been very useful for you. But let's do some mixed practice where we dive into some of these questions, some of these situations, to figure out how we can apply what we've learned. So number one, what are 3 reasons your car insurance may be higher than other people's? So this is more of a critical thinking communication problem opposed to a calculation problem, but still valid. So 3 reasons that, so in order for this question to get full marks, you need to give me 3 reasons. If you only give me 2, even if they're amazing, I can't give you full marks because you didn't fully answer the question. So age is one big reason. So if you are younger, generally 25 is the cutoff point, but if you are younger, you will pay more. This is based on statistics and the accidents and the claims that people make. So generally, younger people make more claims than and older people in the grand scheme of things. This is not an individualized, this is all trends and patterns. So a second reason that your car insurance might be higher than other people's is if you didn't take driver's ed. So no driver's education. This isn't for the long run. This will change over time. If you are in your, I don't know, 50s and you have a clean driving record, you've never been in an accident, you've never made a claim, then probably the fact that you didn't take driver's ed at some point isn't going to change your insurance premiums all that much. If you are a new driver and you didn't take driver's ed, then it is definitely going to affect your premiums. And your driving record, your driving history is going, so your driving history with multiple claims and accidents, then you are higher risk. So the insurance company is making you pay more because you're costing them more. Okay, number 2. So that was a car insurance question. Number 2, Best Car Rentals charges $125 per week with a 4-cent charge per kilometers. And We Heart Rentals charges $59 per week with a 10-cent charge per kilometer. When would each company be the better option? So again, not a calculation question so much, but just considering why might you want to rent from one, why might you want to rent from the other? So We Heart Rentals seems really cheap. It's only $39 per week. That's half price almost. Yeah, that's half the price of the best car rentals. So probably We Heart Rentals is cheaper weekly cost. So if you were going to rent something for multiple weeks, then it would be better to do it for We Heart Rentals. But they charge you 10 cents per kilometer. So if you're going to drive a lot, then that might not be the best option. So multiple weeks would be a good reason. And not long distances. Because you get charged a higher rate for kilometers. So Best Car Rentals it has a cheaper kilometer charge. So it is better for longer distances. But worse for multiple weeks, worse for longer time. So if you're only going to use it for 1 week and you are driving a fair amount, then probably Best Car Rentals would be your better option. You could actually calculate this out and find an exact moment when it would change, but we haven't learned how to do that, so we're not going to go there. We're just going to think about it holistically, which is fine. Sometimes you don't need to calculate it. You can just sort of go off of what logic says. Okay, number 3. Oh, sorry, that would have been a car rental question. You borrowed $5,000 and will pay it back with compound interest after 3 years. How much interest do you pay if the rate is 4.8% compounded monthly? All right, so this says compound interest, compounded monthly. That means that it is a compound interest question. So we are going to use the formula A equals P times 1 plus R over N, all to the exponent NT. I have done this so many times that I have it memorized. It is okay if you do not have it memorized. You can look it up. That is totally fine. It's not something that I think that you need to have in your brain. Being able to apply it and use it is more important than having it memorized. So we are looking for the interest, the amount of interest, which actually isn't in this formula. But in order to find the interest, we need to figure out the total amount that we earn and subtract the principal. So we have to do this in 2 steps. So the interest is equal to the amount, take away the principal. So we need to find the amount first. So first we're going to find the amount. We know the principal, which is $5,000. We know the rate, which is 4.8%, which is equal to 0.048, right? Turned it into a decimal. N is your number of compounding periods. So it's compounded monthly. So that means that it's 12 times per year. And T is the number of years. So that's 3 because we're doing it for 3 years. So then we put it into our formula. So 5,000 times 1 plus 0.048 over 12, divided by 12, sorry, all to the exponent 12 times 3. So you can do these calculations by step, or you can just put it all into your calculator. So 5,000 times, remember you need to use your brackets properly. Brackets matter. 1 plus 0.048 divided by 12. And then all to the exponent 12 times 3. So that gets $5,772.76. 5,772.76 is how much you owe at the end of the 3 years. So how much interest did you pay? So our interest is the total amount that we owe, $5,772.76. Take away how much we borrowed, $5,000, the principal. So $772.76 is the interest. So you owe $772.76 in interest. And that is a compound interest question. Number 4, when going on a road trip, what might be some financial surprises? So even if you plan, what might you not expect? Here, I don't give you a number of things. So here you can just give me sort of the quality of your answer. So that taxes are different. In different provinces, territories. Gas prices are different. So gas prices can vary greatly. If you live in Southern Ontario and you come up here and you see that our gas is $2.25 a liter, that might be a big surprise, even if you're used to it being $2 or looking under $2. What else might be a surprise? Cost of food could be really different. Cost of food is really expensive here. And cost of accommodation. So here you might be able to rent a full cabin for the amount that if you go into Toronto, that you might get an Airbnb and you might just have a room. So those can be really, really different depending on where you are. Things really, really can vary. So things to consider when you're making a road trip. You might want to look into that. Okay, number 5. So that was planning a travel trip. Our question. Estimate the cost of buying a computer in the following 3 situations. Which is the best buy? So we have Winnipeg Tech, T-Bay Computers, and USA Deals Online. So 3 situations where we can be buying a computer. We need to calculate, for Winnipeg Tech, we need to calculate the tax, which has PST and GST in Manitoba. At T-Bay Computers, we have to calculate HST because it's in Ontario. And in USA Deals Online, we don't have to calculate tax, but we have to calculate conversion rate because it's in US dollars. So we need to convert it to Canadian dollars to see what that is. So this is a combination question of various things. So for Winnipeg Tech, let's do that first. So to calculate PST, so PST is 7% in Manitoba, and GST, remember, is 5% everywhere. So we can do it separately. We could do PST and then we could GST, or we could do it together. So 7% plus 5% is 12%. So we could do, so the computer is $497.45, and it says to estimate the cost. So if I'm going to estimate that, I'm just going to say that that's $500 because we don't have to find it exactly. So because I'm estimating, I'm going to say it's $500. And then I'm going to say, okay, so then there for the tax, I'm going to say, I'm going to do it together for 12%. So 12% of so to figure this out, I'm going to say, well, 10% of $500 is equal to $50, and 2%. So 2% is 1/5 of, so it's like a fifth of 10%. If I cut that up into 5, so I'm going to say that that's $10. So the tax in total is going to be $60. So the estimated price, the estimated cost, not price, the estimated cost at Winnipeg Tech is going to be $560. Okay. So then at Thunder Bay Computers, we have $535 is our price. So we probably can work with $535. It's not too unfriendly. We can try. So that means that we're going to do tax is 13%, right? So we're going to do, so 10% of 533 is equal to $53.50. And then 3%, so a third of that. So a third of that, because 3% is almost a third, not quite. So if I say, I'm trying to think what a third, what's a friendly number close to a third. So I know that 51 is divisible by 3. So 51 is, is 30 plus 21. And I know that 30 is $10, and ours would be a third of 30 is 10 and a third of 21 is 7. So I want to say 17 is about 3%. So adding those together, we get $70.50. So the estimated cost is 530 plus 70.50. Sorry, 535 plus 70.50. So that's going to be $605.50. So far it is cheaper to get it in Winnipeg. And then the US online is $325 plus $35 delivery. So that is $325 plus 35. 30 plus 20 is 50. So 5 plus 5 is another 10. So that's $360. So there's no tax, but we need to use our currency conversion. So for every $1 US, it's $1.27 Canadian. So for $360 US, how many dollars Canadian is it? So that means that I need to do 360 times 1.27 27, but we're estimating, we're not doing it exactly right. So I'm going to say, well, instead of 127, I'm going to think of 125 because that's pretty close. And so 1 is 360 is equal to 100% or $1, and plus a quarter of 360. Well, half of 360 is 720. No, sorry. Half of 360, half of 300 is 150. Half of 60 is 30. So 180. There we go. 180. Half of 180 is 90. So 360 plus 90 is going to be 450 Canadian. So the estimated cost is 450. So buying it, so comparing 560 to 605.50 to 450, US deals online is the best buy. It is the cheapest. So that's where I would go. Number 6, where is this person traveling to and from? Why does it take so long? So we have a itinerary from Air Canada. This logo tells me that it's Air Canada. Returning flight on June 16th, Thursday, June 16th. And if we look here, it says, okay, 8:45 a.m. St. John's International Airport. So that is in St. John's, Newfoundland. So we are traveling from St. John's, Newfoundland. And then where are we traveling to? So first we travel to Halifax, but do we stop there? Nope, we keep going. We have a layover of 41 minutes in Halifax. And then we leave from Halifax to go to Ottawa. We ended up in Ottawa. Nope, we have another layover, 2 hours and 54 minutes in Ottawa. And then we go from Ottawa to Billy Bishop. It's in Toronto, the downtown airport in Toronto. And do we end up there? Nope. We have a layover in Toronto for 5 hours and 11 minutes. And then also here it says transfer from YTZ to YYZ. So, and in red with a little caution mark. So YTZ is Billy Bishop, which is your downtown airport. And you need to actually change airports. You need to, I don't know if there's a shuttle. I don't know if you just have to take the TTC, take a cab, but you need to get to the Toronto International Airport and then go from Toronto International Airport to Thunder Bay. And then Thunder Bay is our last arrival point. So we are going from Newfoundland to Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay, Ontario. And so why does it take so long? Well, because we have stops in Halifax, in Ottawa, and in Toronto. We have 3 stops. For a total of, let's see, so 41 minutes in Halifax, 2 hours and 54 minutes. So let's say that that's 3 hours. And 5 hours and 11 minutes. Let's say that's 5 hours. So that's 8 hours of layover time. And then 41 minutes, let's say that's another hour. So we have 9 hours. So we have 9 hours of layover time. So that's just time that you're not flying, that you are either waiting in an airport, or this key little bit here, which is really interesting, that you are moving from one airport to another airport and figuring out how to do that. That would stress me out. 5 hours and 11 minutes seems like a long time, but if you need to travel, if you've ever driven or been in Toronto, you know that everything takes forever. And then you're at a new airport and you need to check in, you need to do your luggage, you need to, maybe your luggage gets transferred, I don't know, but that would stress me out. I would have to look into that deeply to see if that was worth transferring airports in Toronto. Anyway, something I didn't know that was possible, but I guess it is. Question 7. Oh, sorry, that would have been a traveling by plane question. Car A has a gas tank that is 48 liters big and can travel 720 kilometers on one tank. Car B has a gas tank that is 55 liters big and can travel 690 kilometers on one tank, which has a better fuel economy. So usually we figure out how much gas we use. This I did it backwards. So car A, we have 48 liters per 720 kilometers. And we want for fuel economy, we want how many liters per 100 kilometers. So then car B is the same thing. We have 55 liters per 690 kilometers. We want to know how many liters it is per 100 kilometers. So how we figure that out is we are going to do our 48 divided by 720, and we get 0.0666666 forever, which doesn't seem like it makes any sense. But actually what we need to do is we need to multiply that by 100, because we are talking about, that would be per 1 kilometer, and we need to do it for 100 kilometers. So that gets us 6.66, so 6.7 liters is the fuel economy for car A. And for car B, we have 55 liters per 690. So we get 0.0797, but remember we wanted to times that by, oops, I need to give my answer, times that by 100. And so we get 7.97, so really 8.0 is our fuel economy for the second for car B. So which one has a better fuel economy? Car A does, because it's a lower number. And we can go farther distance on less gas. Okay, that's a fuel economy question. So our course is completed. You need to have submitted now all of your questions, 1 through 20, all of your key questions. Please hand them all in. Get them in. And then a reminder that your culminating activity is open book, so you do have access to all of your material. If you're handing in your work in at this point, I'm probably not getting it back to you before you're doing your culminating activity, but it does cover all 20 lessons. It has multiple parts to it that build on each other. So you need to do the whole thing in order to get to the end. For full marks, you need to show all of your work so I can truly understand what you understand. And you need to give yourself time. It's something that is going to take a bit of time. So you need to give yourself time. You need to, even though it's open book and you have it for a couple of days, you need to actually get it done. It's not something that you can just do in an hour. It's going to take some time. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate, which is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE @nnec.on.ca. You can Facebook message me at bslatewahsa and find all of our lessons. All 20 of our lessons are on YouTube at bslatewahsa in a playlist called MEL3E, which is our course code. Good luck with completing your work. Get it into me, please, as soon as possible. Next week, we will review everything in order to set you up for success for your culminating. But you need to have everything done, and you need to connect with me so you can get your culminating. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a lovely day. Witch.